Well, it's finally 2022, and it's just one day closer to my new e-bike, and I'm starting to get like a collection of keys now on my keychain, and so that feels good. I used to have a Cadillac Escalade. Um, you can like find that maybe online. Well, you can for sure. You can see it, but I never had it for that long, and I never had my other e-bike for that long either. For a matter of fact, and hopefully, I have this one for a significant amount of time. Um, got my street cuffs, got my other locks. Still waiting on like 4 or 5 different locks and alarms. Really want to make sure I have that for when the bike does come. It's supposed to come in on either the 4th or the 5th. It's first now of January, or yeah, January 2022, New Year. So tomorrow, the next day, and then after that should come. So that's all I'm looking forward to right now. Um, and I take care of the e-bike until spring. Hopefully, I should be able to start riding it. I won't have the battery, like I said, for at least another month, so I won't be able to drive it for at least a month. I'll have it, the physical bike. I'll have the keys, and it'll be downstairs all locked up. I'll be able to look at it every day, and I could sit on it if I wanted to, and people can see it. Just won't have the internal battery until January or until February. February, mid Feb, maybe February, yeah, about mid February, I'd say. Latest March, I'd have it, and then I'll be driving around. You'll see videos of me riding it around, moto vlogs, like good ones. I like the one TNT did the last time. Just, I think it was either late night December 31st, or yeah, it must have been late night December 31st. He uploaded one, and he actually showed the throttle and the dash, or the speedometer and everything. Now the other guy, you can hardly ever see the bike. He's always riding. You can only see the road in front of him. Well, in my personal opinion, I like to see the person's arms. I like to see um, the bike, like the speed. I like to see everything like that. And the last one he did, the one guy you could actually see it, but the other guy, he always doesn't even show nothing really. He always doesn't even show nothing really. And as you know, well, my hand tattoo's still not all the way fixed, as you could probably see. I just got those new ones you've seen on my arm, and got these ones a lot. That's all I got in 2020. I got this one, that new one on here, this one, and that's what I got in 2020 for tattoos. I got a lot of great ideas for tattoos in 2022. Hopefully, I can get most of them. Some arm ones. Got a good one for the arm right here, and to fix my hand all the way. Other side of my neck, the snake or the snake and the apple and everything, to go with the banana and the gorilla. So tatted up, getting tatted up. riding bikes, vlogging, YouTubing, making money on YouTube. Um, Got to get some new clothes. Clothes will be a thing because if I'm doing videos, I just already ran through my whole wardrobe. Shout out to Nolson55 from Instagram. He liked my post. He's a big fan over on Instagram. Instagram shut me down last year in 2020, but I had everything backed up, and I got a new Instagram where I'm re-uploading all my old original stuff, about 2,000 something posts or more of original the StacksAMilli original Instagram when I first started. You can see the changes. A lot of my tattoos were unfinished, as with the tattoo issue here. Like once that's finished, it's all gonna build. It's all gonna build upon itself, and hopefully by the end, it's a pretty nice empire. Because people see it and say, "Oh, what's up with that?" And then they look into it, and I get ad money for everything that they look into that I own, right? So I made a whole story. Um, so that's what I'm building my story, but I still miss a lot. But I try my best to capture everything. But I'm learning a lot, and I've learned a lot. But it doesn't. It really comes down. What I've learned is it really comes down to doing, not even really learning, because you can learn one thing and just do it and 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 be successful and have everything that you want out of like one niche or one thing, one category or one subject or one skill or one tool. I swear it could make you tons of money, but then you get tired of doing the same thing for for such a certain period of time. Like you might be working a certain job and making a killer when you're a kid or a young man, 18, 19, whatever. And then by the time you hit 28 or whatever, and you're almost 30 years old, you've been doing that same thing for 10 years. You can't do it anymore. You feel like you're going to blow your brains out or something because you've done it so many times. You get sick of repetition. Your body, you feel stagnant. It's like if you when you hear a really good song and you love that song, you might listen to it a million times and you get high off that song and you listen to it and it's just amazing and you're like thinking in your mind, I'll never get sick of this song. It's an amazing song. I feel like in such complete bliss. I never thought I would find a song that made me feel like this again. And then you listen to it like a million times and you're even thinking, I've listened to it a million times and I still love this song. It's great. I'll never, ever not, you know what I mean? I love this song. And then I swear to God, after a certain amount of time, you will not want to listen to that song again. Your brain will say, it's like, it's a good, your brain will say to you, it's a good song, but it has to go up, or like you feel like you're just going to conk and pass out or die. Your organs start to seize. You'll feel your organs and everything about you will start to seize up and be like, we've already listened to it. You've gotten everything, every little thought process that could come out of that symphony or whatever, every little ounce drop you've gotten, and you'll get sick of that song. And you'll still love the song and tell people you love it. But then eventually, like, oh, and then it takes time. And then eventually you might hear the song when you're out not listening to music at all. And it and then you get that. And sometimes it's good, but if it's not a good situation, it reminds you, oh yeah, that's why I don't listen to that song. Or there's my song that I always loved. I had a certain time with it. And then you can relapse or whatever and um have a favorite song 10 years ago and then you don't like it anymore and then 10 years later or whatever around the same time you hear it and you suddenly are having like memories and things that you haven't had in so long because it helps bring it back to you. Like last night, I watched Dennis the Menace from 1993. That's the year I was born, and this was a movie I had watched when I was younger, and I hadn't seen it since I was a child. and I'm 28 years old now, close to 30 years old, and I hadn't seen this movie since I was a young child. And I watched it last night, and I couldn't remember anything about the movie. And I'm watching it, and my brain is just enjoying it. Um, and and all the and the scenes I remember, could it felt like butter on my brain. I could remember the scenes, and then it was like waking up parts of my brain that have not been woken up since the 90s. And we are human beings. We only last for so long, and that's life you can never get back. Those are certain memories that are captured, almost like a camera, that have been in the hard drive, which is your brain, and stored sort of at the bottom. And by watching these things that help remember earlier times in your life, if you don't haven't hear, like if you haven't seen it in extreme periods of time, like the one I seen yesterday, like when I was watching it, I felt like my young child self, but as a 28-year-old watching, it's hard to explain. You could see the last time I seen the picture was when I was a child, the movie Dennis the Menace, and I'm watching it, and you're getting memory. You're seeing something that you seen when you were a child. So you haven't seen these things, but you remember every single. Yeah, it's hard to explain, but it makes you feel weird, and you get like a sort of a retrospective feeling. And it's like, where are you at now compared to what you thought you were going to be? You know, because when you were young and you're watching whatever it was, you thought you were going to be this, that, and the other by this certain age. That's the thing you do when you're a kid. You're like, I'm going to be a millionaire with a Ferrari at age 25. Like, you know it. Like, that's what you think in your head. You don't maybe you don't tell anybody, maybe you do. Or you think, I'm going to be a nurse at age 20, or I'm going to have a husband at age 26, or a girlfriend, and this, that, and the other. So when you watch something like I did, where it was the old movie, it was bringing back. And I was thinking, well, I'm not doing too bad for what I thought I was going to be with what I was back then compared to what I am now. And it just made my brain feel good to watch something that I hadn't seen in such a long time. That was a great movie that I watched when I was a child. I loved it when I was a child. It was one of my favorites. I watched it a couple times when I was a kid. Then I never seen it again. Then I seen it was 20 when I watched it when I was 28. I didn't watch the entire thing, but man, it was a good workout for my brain. And that's something my mom doesn't tend to do, and probably a lot of other people is. You want to treat your brain very kindly. That's something I didn't do in the beginning. Was I mistreated my body, and I still do. And it tells me now, Tom, you got to stop. You've been taking it easy, but certain things you just still not taking um, being very friendly to your body. You want to be very friendly. Take care of yourself. That's what a lot of people say. Take care of yourself. And you really want to treat your. I used to swing myself around and bump into this and stub my toe on that and not really care about my smoke this and smoke that and not really care about my body. Surprisingly, from on the camera and stuff like that, and most of the time in the mirror and all that, I look really healthy. And most of the time, some of the time, I feel pretty healthy, but at the same time, I got about 25-30% that doesn't feel healthy. So I'm about 75%, 80% most of the time. And then there's like that 30% that doesn't. Sometimes I'm at 85%, sometimes 88%. But there's always that little 10. There's always that little 10% ill. That's chronically ill. If you have that, that's why I'm on disability now. I'm chronically ill, and I just never had a chance. Now they're giving me a chance. Okay, I've been given a chance now, and I just pray to God and I pray to everything that it just continues with the ODSP and my disability, how I'm receiving disability and things like that. Without that, I would be like a waste of life. Like, I'm 28 years old. I'm highly educated. I have a lot of skills. I can speak English. I comprehend many other languages. Why should I be just wasted in a homeless shelter doing nothing while when I could be producing something for somebody or some company and making profit or progress in some department that maybe somebody else that is in a better position that was given to them or whatever, they're not doing anything with it and it just needs to be rearranged. Where certain ones, like, say, for instance, I'm not going to hate on them, but say, for instance, some refugees have been given certain accommodations and they just have not shown proper etiquette or progress or development. They should be rearranged to maybe go to a lower rating in luxurious accommodations. Instead of giving them a very nice home, maybe they should go to an apartment, or if they're in an apartment, maybe they should go to a short-term shelter, or maybe if they're in a mansion, they should just go to a smaller home and whatnot and the other. Okay, and that's the kind of stuff that's going on. You've got people that are in mansions and they don't do nothing but collect every month and eat tons of food and enjoy everything and ride in their very expensive vehicles and pay their little monthly payment under our credit system and our taxation of dollars that get given to them and things out of humanitarian reasons, which I agree with as well. But there should be a rearrangement of the allocation of how much money certain ones are getting. Like like our natural born citizens. There should be a better program for our natural born citizens. They care a lot about how the Syrians are going through this and that. And I seen YouTube commercial about how Syrians are out in the snow and it's cold now and things like that out in Syria. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a natural born citizen in Canada. I went to school in Canada. I'm only 28. You know, it sounds like I'm a 70-year-old talking like, I grew up in. No, I'm 28 years old and I'm really lucky I'm even alive to make it to 30. And when you grow up as a child in Canada, you think we're in the best country on earth. That this one, United States, United Kingdom, Australia, et cetera, et cetera. We're not in a very bad place like there is countries that are poor and you wouldn't want to be there because there's a lot of bad things that happen, crimes and murders and freedom. Canada and United States and things were known to have freedom. And I got to go down to the United States and whatnot, but that's irrelevant. I went to school somewhat there too, but when I grew up, I just and I this kind of is sort of irrelevant because I have made it, but I'm not to the age where in Canada our expectancy is about 76 years old, but we see our grandparents make it to 80, 90, 70, 100, all that. We expect to make it to that age. We don't expect certain crimes and things to be happening and getting hurt or killed and things like what's been going on and stuff like that in North America, other places. But especially in Canada, it was relatively safe. When I grew up and when I was a kid, I always thought I was going to be highly successful, which I am, sort of. You know, when I say highly successful and I compare it to maybe what I'm supposed to be at or what I should be at or what would make me feel comfortable being at and then comparing it to like no, I'm not successful if I say that because I don't own a home, I don't own land. That's a big thing. I don't own a vehicle anymore. I used to, even though I'm buying a motorcycle in a couple days, so I'll own an electric motorcycle soon. But I used to own a truck for a very short time, but I never really had the chance to own a vehicle. So I was born in Canada in 1993, millennial or whatever, and I never really had the chance to own a vehicle for a significant amount of time. I had to Escalade for a short amount of time, and I got screwed over by a jealous person. Then I had the electric bike for maybe a year at most. Okay, so I had those two things for a very short amount of time, even though I bought them. I just got screwed up. People put sugar in my gas tank. A lot of different things were happening to try to sabotage me. I don't own a home. I have never owned any land. I'm a first time home buyer. I've never bought any land. So I'm 28. I've never owned any land. I was born in Canada, and I went to school, and I was born in a good city in Canada, and I had education. I went to school all the time, but it's just the system. The system is sort of broken, and I can't afford to pay tax, and I can't afford nothing. I'm on disability. Without disability, I'd be just dead on the street. Like, but that's inhumane because I'm a fighter. I want to be something. I always wanted to be something. I have want a family. I have family out there. Um, and I have life in me, and I did make money for myself, and I've been generous, and my family ancestors have made a lot of money in Canada and worked very hard in Canada all the way through the branches. I'm so lucky that I was part of a big tree, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. I was a part of a big. Actually, I was a part of like a vineyard or a forest. Like my tree was touching a lot of other branches and things like my family specifically. I know a lot about my ancestry, and a lot of ones don't. They don't know their fathers, and they don't know their grandfathers and their uncles, and they might have one or two, but I have an abundance. I could name off 8 or 9 aunties and uncles and or more. I wish I had more fatherlies. I have one father, and I had a sort of I have a couple mom's boyfriend stepfatherly figures, and I had a stepmother and a mother, but my grandmother died early. Both grandmothers died very early, and my grandfather died early, and one of my uncles died early. I had never actually before had even been conceived. My grandfather as well as my uncle had passed away, which were two big figures. Especially my grandfather. He was a very wealthy grandfather, being my dad, John Slote's father. He owned a multi-million-dollar property out in Hillsburg, Ontario, Canada, where he obtained the property through the land through marriage because he had married a woman that happened to be kin to an extremely wealthy man that then gave my grandfather like a decent chunk of land just out of marital respect and gifts and things. And then they had built a home which was my father's birthplace sort of home and where I grew up in the beginning, which actually sold for 1.2, 1.3 million just recently, but originally it was lower. My dad had sold it to the guy that just sold it for 1.3. But if I was up to me and my, see, that's why I needed my grandfather to be around. He had passed away. But if he had been around, we would have never sold that. It was basically a country mansion, older 1900s, 1940s, or 50s, and built in 1940s or 50s. Nice, 5, 6 bedroom, two bath, upper lower level basement, and then you had wrecking. We had a scrap yard and big gigantic 2 barns, big gigantic treehouse. That was at the original property, where I was originally from in Hillsburg. But I was born in a separate city, but I got to go to the general hospital. But that is the property in which in which my wealthier, some of my wealthier ancestors came from when it came to direct wealth. Like my grandfather is the closest one to me that would be wealthy, and then my grandmother, that being my Tom Slote was my grandfather's name. My name is Tom Slote, but my grandfather's name was Tom Slote, and he was wealthy, but he wasn't extremely wealthy. His wife, who was my grandma, Margaret, her brother was extremely wealthy. We're talking, and still is alive, actually. That's what I'm talking about. My grandmother's brother is still alive. Now, he might pass away in the next 10 years, but he's still alive, and he was the extremely wealthy one that gifted the one that gifted my grandfather that land is still alive. His name's Roy Lang. He's my uncle. Technically, he's my great uncle Roy. He's my brother. He's my father's uncle Roy. He's my great uncle Roy, and he owns hundreds of acres out in Hillsburg, Ontario, Canada. We're talking hundreds of acres he owned and still does. Multiple houses, uh, millions of dollars. He owned a big, gigantic well drilling company called Lang Well Drilling, and that's how my uncle Gary Slote, sorry, had died from a well drilling accident out in Alberta. Shell Oil they were working with. Actually, my family was so wealthy that when Shell Oil had made their enterprise to Canada, it was my family that Shell Oil had to rent equipment to start extracting oil from. That was my family. Um, this was when they first even see we're the originators of Canada. That's what we see. Everybody say my country, this, that, and the other, but they forget that we welcomed them here, and it's like that still, and it will be until I die, and they know that, and that's scary too. But we're very kind, and I've been very kind, so there's no reason to kill me and kill others like me because we've been around. We are very nice people. We brought a lot of people here, and we want to build, and we're a very friendly nation, and we believed in everybody equality and everything. But at the same time, we have stories from when we started, like way back, and that is my family. We started way back. Well drillers, a lot of different, actually, a lot of different well drilling and acreages. Uh, Part of my that side of the family have acreages and oil rich, big time. And we rented. We started basically helped Shell Oil start their enterprise here in Canada when they started out in Alberta. In Ontario, we'd done well drilling. My dad was a plumber. My grandfather, I think he was a well driller and a plumber and a scrapper, and he owned did a lot of different things. Businessman. I think he was more of a business guy, and I think he was a lot of a lady pleaser too. I think he liked to stay home and cook homemade meals and things, and be with his wife, and do get business done and make do odds and ends and things. Um, and he had the family, right? He had my dad, and my dad, when I think of him when I'm not talking to him, it's one thing. And most of the time when I talk to him, I love him and I like what he says and all that too. But I wish he said more, and I wish he understood more, and I wish he cared more. He doesn't care as much as I wish he did. And I wish he understood where he's from and what he did and sort of the way he's acted all the way up, and he's never changed. And he's down there in the United States, and he's a Canadian, and it's sort of like he's um, turned his back on his home country of Canada. And I think it was because he's an idiot. He had a father. He should have been taking as good care of that father as he could. Same with his brother. Warned him or something. I don't know, but he should have took at least see the my brother was nowhere near my father. My father was there when my grandfather died. And my father's brother, when he died, he was nowhere near my father, but he went all the way out to Alberta and died. He got stuck in an oil drill thing, big gigantic oil drilling thing. And you can search up on the Google News and all that. Gary Slote, Slote, Gary. He got caught in it. He got a shirt and it just pulled him right in and tangled him all the way up and killed him. Now, my grandfather was on a backhoe on our family property, went out to the main street, which is like a gravel road, and they were doing some building and stuff, and he had the top of the backhoe's loader or whatever this is called, um, shovel and whatnot or whatever, shovel and loader or whatever, hit the power line. It went down in the loader through the metal, and he had change in his pocket, and the electricity went right through his heart, and it killed him. My dad was there, and he was spitting up blood and whatnot, and he was dead, and he had died, whatever, had a heart attack and died. So my dad was there, and he was devastated, supposedly, but the way he acts when I talk about it, and just the way he acts when it comes down to teaming up. He's getting better now. We're doing videos and whatnot. And he says he doesn't want to do them, blah blah blah, but he's doing them because he likes to do them too. Uh, but yeah, that hurt because a lot of families have their grandfather. They have a lot of these male figures that are still alive because males are the ones usually that are great for protection. They know about like protecting the home and all that. Nobody knows. Robbers will not break in a home if you got a lot or a mansion or something like or properties or whatever. You got males, or hey Billy, so and so is breaking into your property. It's usually a lot of times males are very alert and all that and assertive and whatnot. So when families have a lot of males, they're usually a very successful family from what I've encountered. I've seen because I've encountered a few very successful families, and I'll tell you something about the successful families I've noticed. They have a lot of male sibling boys and girls. They have a lot of family members. Every family member is going to make money for themselves. Like anybody that's going to be living in the world, period, has to make money and stuff like that for themselves. When I say money, I mean every person that's alive has interests. So that person wants clothes. This person might not want clothes. They want this. They want that. Everybody's got lives and they have an economy of their own. I would call it like a personal economy. Everybody's got their own little economy. You spend this amount on food, this amount on this amount on whatever. But it's different for every person. Every person's little economy is different. And when you have a lot of family members, and say you're the father or the mother and you have a lot of children, all the children have little economies. This kid likes that, this kid likes that, this kid likes that, this person likes that. This one's a hard worker, stuff like that. You have more of a chance of one becoming a very successful millionaire or something and whatever, working hard and whatever. And guess who gets the profits? Well, mom and dad. I love mom and dad. And well, you just are getting now you're making profit off your children. And it happens, well, you say that's illegal. You can't just profit off your children. That's slave labor or slave. It depends on how you do it. They do nowadays. It's just natural. It's just a natural thing that happens. The kid becomes successful and starts taking care of the parents or whatever, or gives the parents gifts if they become highly successful. But basically, that's my little talk.